4 months after the coronavirus pandemic hit India, we've crossed the mark of 1 million cases. So that's 10 lakh confirmed cases in India. We're only the third country in the world to pass this grim milestone after the United States and Brazil. So we've done some number crunching, a comparative analysis of how we're doing in the fight against coronavirus when you compare it to the United States and Brazil when they crossed the 1 million mark as well. And we're going to be doing this analysis with the help of India Today's Data Intelligence Unit, who's put together these figures for us, comparing three aspects. One, the recovery rate, then you have the fatality rate and also the growth rate of the cases. Let's first focus on the recovery rate, and this is where there's a positive sign for India. Our recovery rate at this point is excellent. It stands at 63%. You compare that to the United States and to Brazil, and remember, we're comparing the situation in these two countries when they hit the 1 million mark. In the United States, when they hit 1 million cases of coronavirus, the recovery rate was just 11%, with 83% of active cases coming to the light. As far as Brazil goes, they were better off than the United States because the recovery rate in Brazil was at 57%, while the active cases was at 38%. And you compare that to India, where the recovery rate is much better than the United States and Brazil because it's above 60% at 63%, and the active cases was at 34%. So in this aspect, India is doing very well, much better than how Brazil and US were faring when they had hit the 1 million case mark. Let's focus now on the growth case rate in the country, and this is where the situation is rather worrying for India. We've been seeing cases going up at an alarming rate. So as of July 17th, the growth rate of coronavirus cases stands at 3.4%, which essentially means that the number of cases in India is doubling every 21 days. Brazil and US are doing better on that front. Brazil, in fact, had crossed the 1 million mark on June 2nd, and at that point, the growth rate of coronavirus cases was at 3.3%, lesser than India. So in India, while it's taking 21 days for cases to double, as of June in Brazil, when they hit the 1 million case mark, it was in fact taking 22 days, a day extra than India, for cases to double. What about the United States? Remember that the United States hit this milestone of 1 million cases much before all of us, in April itself. And since then, their cases have been going up at a rapid speed. It's crossed 3.5 million now. But at that stage, their growth rate was lesser than that of India's at 3.1%. So it was even lesser than Brazil's. Essentially, in US in April, when they had hit 1 million coronavirus cases, it was taking 23 days for cases to double. So if you look at the 1 million case mark and compare where India is when compared to US and Brazil, as far as the growth rate of cases are concerned, we are in a worrying situation because cases are going up very, very fast. Now, this growth rate of coronavirus cases that we're referring to is the weekly growth rate. So the weekly growth rate of COVID cases in India, as we've crossed the 1 million milestone, is at 3.4%, higher than the United States and Brazil. Now, another aspect, the analysis that we have done, which really tells us how we're faring in the fight against coronavirus, is with regards to the fatality rate. Now, what we have to keep in mind is that at this point, as of July 20th, our active caseload is lesser than the overall recoveries. Now, the number of recovered patients is more than the active caseload by 3,04,043, with 6.77 lakh patients having successfully recovered, having made a full recovery from coronavirus. Our death figures also, our fatality rate is low, and that's great news because in the fight against coronavirus, what matters is that our recovery rate is high and that our fatality rate is low, and we've succeeded in that front. As per the official figures that have been put out, India's got its fatality rate very much under control. At this point, if you look at the data that's coming out, India has the 7th highest death toll in the world. When you compare that to the number of cases we have, it is still very, very good, and it is a silver lining in the fight against coronavirus, considering that Brazil and US have a lot more deaths due to coronavirus when compared to India. The government has also highlighted this point about how our fatality rate is low when compared to other countries in the world. It's one of the lowest in the world, and the government is saying that it's continuing to fall, that it's progressively falling. At this point, it stands at 2.49%, and let's hope it remains that way. So when you look at all these figures, what really really is the outcome? Are we doing well in the fight against coronavirus? Well, as I mentioned earlier, what remains a serious cause of worry is the fact that cases are going up at an alarming rate. The government has also said that this is because of aggressive testing now in several parts of the country. But this still remains a serious concern and something that we must address on a war footing. However, what we're doing right and what remains a silver lining for India is the fact that our recovery rate is high and that our fatality rate is low. And these two numbers, these figures really matter when you talk about battling a pandemic. We'll have to see really how things pan out, but let's hope that India soon has things under control and that the coronavirus pandemic goes away.